Hello, if you're watching this, then you're probably new to the game, and I'd like to welcome you. Just as a bit of a note here, there will be timestamps in the description for you to jump around if you need to look for something more specific. If you need any more information, the TF2 wiki is amazing and is constantly being updated whenever Valve adds stuff to the game. So you can more than likely find an answer to any question you have there. If not, you can head over to Reddit and go to r/new to TF2 or r/TF2. I'll be making a video on each class and how to play them. I'll link the whole playlist in the description and have a link for it at the end of the video. So if you're looking to play a specific class, go ahead and check that out. Alright, so I'll get out of your hair now and start the video. The first thing that you should know about TF2 is the classes. There are 9 classes in the game with a variety of playstyles. The categories of them are actually not accurate. The more accurate areas for each class are as follows. Pick for single target elimination, power for damage output, which should be the bulk of your team, and support for, well, supporting. Uncle Dane made a great graphic for this, which you're probably looking at right now, so there's the breakdown. If you're new to the game, I highly recommend starting by playing Heavy or Pyro. They're the most beginner-friendly classes with weapons that are far more forgiving than most in the game. If you're new to PC gaming, they'll work as well. I know a couple people that claim Heavy is how they got used to keyboard and mouse after using a controller for years. Speaking of which, while I'm usually a proponent of using whatever input device you want, you're going to want to use a keyboard and mouse for TF2, or really any shooter on PC. The reason for this is that almost every weapon in the game is a high-powered single-shot weapon, so you can't spray, and you're not going to get that with a controller, especially over your opponents. Now, on to movement. As a new player, you're not going to start off by doing sick rocket jumps out of the gate. They take a long time to get used to. To start off, you're going to want to know how to crouch jump. You'll probably see players jumping onto ledges or railings that you can't. The reason for this is the crouch jump. All you have to do is press crouch. It defaults to control. I have it set to shift. After you jump, and it'll give you a bit more clearance over ledges so you can get onto them or over them. Then, you'll need to know how to strafe. While this is mostly important for rocket jumping, and it takes a while to learn, it is important. So strafing is moving with your A and D keys, and you'll want to use this while in the air. Couple this with moving your mouse in the associated direction, and you'll go that way. If you've done it right, you'll go in a circle, or a snake-like pattern. While rocket jumping, you don't want to press W or S because it'll reduce your speed. This may affect you if you're strafing as well, so I figured I'd mention it. Strafing is mostly important when fighting soldiers or demomen, as they'll hit you with explosives, and you can quote-unquote surf the damage to either get away, or mix up your movement so they can't hit you as easy, as most will try to juggle you in a pattern so they can hit you again and again. Alright, this is me trying to strafe holding W while strafing normally, holding W and D while moving my mouse right. You can't do it. Same thing while holding A and W. However, if you just jump and hold D, you're good. But just make sure you don't hold W or S, obviously, because you would move backwards, because if you did that, you would just, you get the point. Anyway, little injection, that's it. Yeah, have fun strafing. To finish off basic movement, you need to constantly move in TF2. If you don't, you're probably dead. You need to avoid being headshot by snipers, which do 3 times the damage than if they shot you in the body, backstabbed by spies, or just juggled. Moving in a straight line also applies here, but mostly because of snipers. The more unpredictable your movement when fighting them, the better. Okay, on to game modes. There's 2 separate categories in the casual browser, which are official and unofficial game modes. We're going to start with the official ones. To start off, we have Attack Defend. This game mode is one of the few that have asymmetrical maps, something I love to see in video games, as each team doesn't start out on equal footing. The game mode is one of the best to learn the game as well, as it generally breaks down the class roles pretty well. Blue is always the attacking team, and red always defends. You'll switch sides when the round ends. The round can be one map or several, as certain maps have multiple stages such as Dust Bowl and Egypt. Once blue wins all stages, or red successfully defends against blue, the teams switch sides. The control points don't always have to be capped in order, but you can look at the bottom of your HUD to see what's cappable at the moment. For example, on Gravel Pit, you can cap A and B at any time, but you can only cap C when both A and B have been capped. Generally in this game mode, you'll want to have a strong defending line on red and a versatile team on blue. For example, on red, since you'll have setup time, you'll more than likely want to run more engineers and heavies than you normally would, since teleporters should mostly negate the downside of the heavy if you're defending the control points. Then, on blue, while you're attacking, you'll need to consider what the red team has planned for you. For example, if there are multiple engineers engineers on a point, you can go a few different routes. You can either get a soldier or demo man paired with a medic and ubercharge in to destroy the sentries and hopefully free up the point from their defenses, or a player can switch to spy and sap the sentries while the team destroys them, since sentries can't target while being sapped. Granted, the entire rest of the red team should be there to stop you from doing such. So, like I said, in general, blue team has to be a bit more versatile than the red team. You can, however, get a few cheeky caps as Scout, Soldier, or Demo Man, as each of those classes have the opportunity to cap at double the rate. The Scout does such naturally, but the Soldier and Demo Man can use the Pain Train to increase their cap rate. This is best shown off on the first stage of Dust Bowl when a Scout will try to go ahead to try to get onto the second point, just slightly before the first has been capped. Since most of the red team will be dead and respawning, the Scouts have a moment of time to cap and prematurely win the round. Control points. This is the most played game mode in competitive, and while it is flawed, it is played for a good reason. That being consistency, and generally universal circumstances. Control point maps are symmetrical maps, like most of the first-person shooter games out there, to give each team an equal fighting chance on each side. Instead of just blue attacking, both teams are. Both teams start out with either 1 or 2 control points already being controlled, and the middle point is unaffiliated. To capture a control point, you need to own all the previous control points. For example, if you want to cap the 4th control point, you can't do so until the 3rd has been, which can't be until the 2nd has been, and so on. This isn't domination. In this game mode, certain classes are going to be more versatile, such as Soldier and Demo Man, but since you'll be in casual, you won't have to worry about that. For team composition, I'd recommend adapting to the situation, as that's the name of the game mode. To start off, you'll probably want more damaging classes such as Soldier or Demo Man to cap the midpoint. After that, it's pretty much up to you in a casual setting. Cough. Last of the control point-based game modes, this is also played in a competitive setting. King of the Hill is pretty much like it is in any other video game, but in this situation, the hill doesn't move. The point is in the same spot the entire game, so you'll be vying for control of the same point the entire time. You'll have to have control of the point for a total of 3 minutes, possibly with some overtime if the other team attempts to cap at the end. If the game goes into overtime and you have 0 seconds on the timer, you can just recap the point to immediately win. In terms of classes, usually Scouts use King of the Hill for their arena or team deathmatch mode, I should say, rather than going to High Tower since the objective is played more. Usually you'll encounter faster classes such as Scouts, but just about anything can go on in King of the Hill. But it may be harder to set up as Engineer. For class composition, it depends on the map because of sniper sightlines and flank routes. All I will say is you probably don't want to stack Engineers on King of the Hill. Payload. My favorite game mode of them all. Payload originated from TF2 if you didn't know, taking your normally crappy escort mission and actually making it fun. It's one of, if not the most popular game mode casually, and there's no wonder why. On most maps, you can typically do whatever you feel like to a pretty decent extent. Want to flank behind the enemy and distract them back around their spawn to buy your team some time? Go for it. Want to turn the game into a DM fest? Yeah, you're covered. Want to play the objective and push the cart? You're good. If you have a good enough start, you can do a few at the same time. For example, if you destroy the red team while pushing as blue, you can typically take the point unopposed, making it easier for you. Or you can do it under fire, whichever works. Like Attack Defend, blue is always attacking and red is always defending. The maps may be split into stages like Attack Defend, or just played on one map. For example, the most popular maps, Upward and Badwater Basin, are one stage. Once blue team loses a round, or blue defeats red in all stages, the teams will switch sides. Also like Attack Defend, red will have setup time to get their defenses ready for a blue team to deal with, making Engineer a must pick for the red team if you want to win, especially considering payload maps are usually massive between points, so you'll need a teleporter. Touch the cart. To push the cart, you just need to stand next to it, whether that be in front, on the side, or behind it. If no blue team members push the cart for 30 seconds, it'll start rolling back until it reaches a cap point where it'll stop. Therefore, as red, you stop the cart when you touch it, and as blue, you stop the cart from rolling back, or reset the rollback counter if a red team player is also touching the cart. The less the cart rolls back, the less you have to push it. In all payload-based game modes, the maximum push rate is 3, so you don't all have to pile onto the cart. CTF. I know if you look on TF2, it'll have captured the flag listed as an official game mode, but it shouldn't be. It's the worst official game mode that promotes bad playstyles that don't carry over to other game modes. If you're watching this, you're probably new. And if so, please don't play CTF. Play any of the other game modes to get your grasp on the game, then maybe come back to the meme game mode that is capture the flag. Alternative game modes. Payload Race. Honestly, if this replaced CTF in the official game mode list, I'd be pretty happy. With the exception of High Tower. So the game mode is Payload, but instead of having just blue team push and red team defend, both teams have a cart to push, so both teams are defending and attacking at the same time. Kind of how control points rivals attack defend. So, just like how you learn in control points, you can't just defend the whole game and hope to win. You have to do a balance of both. The carts usually start near each other, which starts the round with a good bloodbath, which will then change into a mix of hard pushes and playing the flank. It's a bit of a hectic game mode depending on which map you play, but if you're looking for more of an outrageous game mode to play that has a real objective, this is it. I wouldn't recommend learning to play the game on Payload Race, especially on high tower, but it is fun. Mannpower. You probably shouldn't play this. It's TF2, but with superpowers. Honestly, I don't know how else to explain it. Mannpower isn't a good place to learn the game, and it's not a competitive game mode. And whoever gets the superpowers typically crushes the pub for the rest of the game, so just stay away from this one. So, Mannpower is Capture the Flag, but instead of being the normal stalemated game mode, Valve dropped power-ups around the map that do different things. You can drop the power-ups to classes that would benefit more from it, such as the agility power-up on Spy is super annoying to deal with, and the vampire power-up on Pyro and Heavy made them gods when the game mode initially came out. Like I said, just stay away from this one. Passtime. The most interesting thing I can say about this game mode is that it was made by Bad Robot, the movie studio, with the TF2 team. It's actually a really interesting game mode, and I could see a decent competitive scene around it. However, nearly nobody plays it. The reason being that the teams typically start balanced and then devolve into just engineers and scouts, where the engineers will defend the goals while the scouts have a DM fest in the middle of the map and attempt to score, but almost always fail. If there were class limits, this game mode could actually be great. Nevertheless, the point of the game mode is to get a ball, called the Jack, into a few goals. You can pass the ball to other players, throw it, or run it into a goal. Holding the ball will give you some health regen, so you'll have some defense while being focused. The game mode requires a lot of teamwork, which most people who are playing casual don't want to invest, so overall, stay away from this game mode. Medieval mode. Alright, only the map is listed on the browser, but the game mode is actually known as Medieval mode, which means that you can only use melee or medieval-based weapons. For example, a medic can use his crossbow and a melee, but not his medigun. A sniper can use a bow and a melee, and if they don't use a bow, they're stuck to only their melee weapon. The allowed weapons list has been changed, so I checked the wiki, since many are allowed if you're seriously interested. All you really need to know is that you need to cap both the A and B points before capping the third, final point. After you cap the first two, you have a time limit to cap the third. Unlike just about every other game mode, capping a point doesn't increase the round timer, so you're gonna want to cap the third point fast. All class balance is thrown out the window in Medieval mode, where I'd argue that Demo Knight is the best class, then Spy is a close second because of how hit registration works, and the fact that he has an insta-killing knife that you can pair with any watch, including the Dead Ringer, and he can still disguise. You can go Support Soldier with the Conqueror, which is what I do, but overall it's a fun side game mode that you can play to either fill out melee contracts or just chill out, player destruction. Alright, this is another game mode I could see going official as the quote-unquote team deathmatch of TF2, especially if more non-Halloween maps are added, because that's exactly what it is. Well, it's more like kill confirm from Call of Duty, but still. So you kill other players, and they drop an item, whether that be a beer or a limb or whatever else, and you take it to a point that opens up after a set amount of time and deposit the items to score points. The first team to reach 150 points wins. The game mode lets you play just about any class you want, so if you want to brush up on your DM skills, this probably isn't a bad game mode to pick. It's a hell of a lot better than Hightower, that's for sure. What happened to Asteroid? The backpack. Let's take some time to take a break from all the game modes and discuss the backpack for a minute, shall we? The backpack is a place that you'll use to store all of the items that you acquire, those being weapons, cosmetics, and tools. Items can come in a variety of different qualities, but I'll discuss that in a later episode. All I have to say for now is that you shouldn't buy anything from the Mann Co Store, except for keys and campaign passes. If you want to get into trading, you'll want to buy one thing from the store, and those two are the best to buy because they're not a complete waste of money. Keys are the currency in the trading scene, so you've essentially traded money for something that is valuable, and we'll get more into it in a later episode. The campaign pass is something fun to do, and you can sell the skins that you acquire from said campaign. As mentioned before, another reason why you want to buy something from the store is for trading. You can trade as a free-to-play player, but all drops that given to you are untradeable, and certain trade servers won't let you join if you haven't paid into the game. Back to the backpack, I mentioned weapons. And that's right, the weapons that you start out with aren't the only ones in the game. There's hundreds of weapons in TF2, and it takes quite a while to learn them all. I'll be going over every single one of them in subsequent videos, so don't worry about that. But you can get certain achievements that'll unlock weapons for you. I'll leave a link in the description for an explanation. Besides getting weapons dropped to you and buying them, I'd recommend going to Scrap.tf if you bought a key and waited a week. You can sell the key to someone on Backpack.tf or even Scrap.tf, then use the metal to buy weapons on Scrap.tf at their actual value. They even have a nice little button that sets you up with every single weapon you don't have. I'll have a later episode on the whole trading scene and how to set this up, but this should be all you need to know for now, except for one thing. If you haven't traded in Steam before, then you should know that you're going to need to download the Steam app, and after you download it, go to SteamGuard, and then set up the Authenticator. The reason for this is that if you don't have this set up, trades will be held by Valve for a certain amount of time, and many traders won't want to deal with you if you don't have one. That being said, you'll have some restrictions for 7 days after activating, so I'd recommend getting it set up as soon as possible. Buffs and debuffs. Back to the game, we have buffs and debuffs, almost all of which revolve around unlockable weapons, but we'll start with the buffs here. You can receive mini crits, which are a 35% boost to damage, and they ignore damage fall off. You'll do mini crits if a soldier uses his buff banner and you're near him. You can also get a speed buff from the soldier if he uses a banner called the Conqueror, and while also being under that effect, 35% of all damage done will return to you as health. So if you do 100 damage, you'll heal 35 HP. The last of Soldier's banners, the Battalion's Backup, will give you 35% damage resistance to everything, and 50% damage resistance to sentries. Now, there's also Uber, which has 4 categories due to the 4 different mediguns that the medic uses. There's regular Uber, which makes you invincible for a short amount of time, up to 8 seconds, and lasts less the more people it's applied to. You can also get knocked back when you Ubered, but won't take any damage. There's crits, which will give you guaranteed critical hits, which do 3 times the damage and also ignore damage falloff, but keep in mind that the Engineer's buildings don't take the additional crit or mini crit damage. The Vaccinator gives you 10% damage resistance to certain resistances at all times, which can be seen by looking above your portrait, but when Ubered, you'll resist 75% of the damage type selected. The types can be fire, explosive, and bullet. On to debuffs, the first being marked for death. While being marked for death, you take mini crits. Being marked for death can be applied to you via Girardi, the Fan of War, or if you use the Criticola. You can also be what's called milked. If a scout throws mad milk on you, your enemies will absorb 35% of damage done to you back as health. While being milked, you'll also be wet. Wetness is a debuff that only benefits one weapon in the game, the Neon Annihilator for Pyro, which does crits on wet players. Lastly, we have bleed. You can be given the effect a few different ways, but you'll slowly start to lose health for a short period. You'll stop bleeding if you grab a health pack, and depending on where you got the effect applied from, you'll want to get one. Priorities. So this section is just priorities and miscellaneous stuff. For example, you should know the teleporter priority list, that being Engineer first, since the Engineer is the one who maintains the buildings, and he might need to take that teleporter to keep them up. Second is Medic for obvious reasons, and then Heavy because he's slow. After that, the class list is pretty open except for the Scout. The Scout is always at the bottom since he can run to the front line in the time it takes for the teleporter to recharge. If nobody's respawning at the moment, the Scout can take the teleporter though. Medpack priority is similar. Medics and Engineers have first dibs. The Medic can't heal you if he's dead, and the Engineer can't maintain a dispenser if he's dead. Take the consistent heals over the occasional health pack, and your Medics and Engineers will thank you. Similarly, the kill priority list is pretty similar to those two lists as well. If you see a Medic, it'd benefit your team greatly to take them out. Then Engineers, and then after that, the kill priority list is pretty open. Spy. Alright, so Spies exist. Spy is the hardest class to wrap your head around as a new player, and has the highest skill floor as well. Spy has quite a few unlockable weapons as mentioned before, one of which is called the Dead Ringer, which is when he pretends to die. So you'll shoot him and you'll think that you killed him, but he actually got away. You can tell if he isn't dead by checking out the ammo pack that he dropped. If you didn't get ammo, he's still out there. Other ways you can check for spies is from shooting your teammates as pyro, as the spies will catch on fire. You can walk through teammates, so if you bump into one, that person is an enemy spy. And if a spy is invisible and bumps into an enemy player, the spy will shimmer their team's color, giving them away. When fighting a spy, don't say, "Spy me," as your team might not know what class you are. Say that the spy killed you as a certain class. As spies typically disguise as the same class over and over, you should call out that class. Some final in-game tips for everyone out there. Pay attention to kick votes. Kicking someone who isn't doing anything wrong makes the experience shitty, no matter how bad they are. However, do kick someone if they're cheating, as it makes the match shitty for the other team. Do contracts with friends if you're working on the same contract, and you will earn points together. Settings. Alright, the default TF2 settings are pretty bad, to be honest, so let's change that really quick. Hey, it's post-editing me again. I realized that when doing the settings, I kind of explained it a little weird, so I figured I would do it in person live, because that's gonna make things easier. So, first thing you're gonna want to do when you load into TF2, for what I'm telling you, is to go to Options, and hit Advanced. You should always have Fast Weapon Switch enabled, and you should definitely enable the Developer Console. So once you click those two and check them, hit OK. Then you can click Apply. Then, after that, go ahead and go to Video. And if your resolution is off, then or is different than what your native monitor resolution is, then I would change it to that. Make sure you know what your monitor's resolution is. For example, before when I had a laptop, I was running the game at 1080p when my monitor wasn't even 1080p. So it was like 1368. So I would check in your Windows settings. It should tell you what your monitor's resolution is. And then if it's not automatically your resolution isn't automatically selected, go ahead and change it to that. And then when you go to options here, I would highly recommend you turn off wait for vertical sync. Now, while you're here, change your FOV from 75 to 90. This is really important. In TF2, most players have their FOV at the maximum, and being a, FPS game with other players, you're going to want to be on the same level as everyone else. And people who have the FOV at the minimum are going to be at a disadvantage. So, say, for example, there's someone on your right, well, you might not be able to see them because of your FOV being lower. There's a video that I highly recommend watching that will explain everything. It's made by AAR, or I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but I'm assuming it's R. But he explains it very well. So I'd highly recommend switching your field of view to the maximum. And then go down here to your advanced options, and then turn this on. I was told before that as far as I know, this is automatically selected. But if it's not, turn it on. There is no reason to not have automatic reload on. In other games, such as Call of Duty or Halo or whatever, reloading is typically a death sentence. Like, say you're reloading your assault rifle and then someone comes up on you, well, you're not done reloading, so they just kill you. In TF2, it's different. Say you're a sniper and you have an SMG equipped and you reload your gun, it's because there's, say 15 rounds left in the magazine. And then you go to reload and someone else comes up on you that's low in health. Well, you can just mow them down because it doesn't matter if you're reloading or not. If you have ammo in your clip, you can still shoot, no matter if you're reloading or not. So it'll cancel your reload animation, and you'll just start shooting again. So there's no reason to have this not on. Just like how I said before, you should have fast weapon switch on. Now, I would highly recommend you turn this on, which is display damage done as text over your target. If you've been watching the gameplay, you can see how it'll say like 60 or 100, that's how much damage I've done to that target. And then this also will accumulate the combat text. So say I shoot them 2 times in a row or 3 times in a row or whatever. Say I shoot them 3 times in a row doing 6 damage each. If I do not have this checked, it'll say 6 and then 6 and then 6. Whereas accumulating it would be 6, then 12, then 18. So you don't have to do any math in your head if you select this. And then you should, this will say that if you crit or mini crit, you will probably know the longer you're in the game, but I just keep it selected. Anyway, I have this enabled, you don't have to. This I have enabled, you don't have to as well. Same thing with this and that. But I would recommend turning on this. This just has teammates automatically call out medic when they're on, for example, for me, I think I have it around like, 70% health. Okay, so minimal HUD it makes your HUD smaller, and so I mean, as you can see here, basically all the information that you need will still be on screen. I recommend turning this on, but if you like the big, version of the HUD, then that's fine. And then way down here at the bottom. Let me skip all the way down. I would recommend turning this on, but besides that, I can't really think of anything else on here that you necessarily need to have on. Besides this right here, minimize view models. So, with minimized view models, some of the weapons are really big on the screen. For example, the rocket launcher for the soldier, this guy right here, is takes up about a fourth of your screen. Same thing with like the flamethrower for pyro. It takes up a lot of your screen, and it can cover up someone on your right, or if you have it flipped, say you're left-handed or something, on your left. So say a spy or a soldier or pyro, any class really, but I'll just go with spy, is on your right, and he's trying to sneak up on you, and he's sneaking up on your right. Well, if you don't have this on, it's possible that you might not even see him at all. Maybe he's disguised and you don't see him at all. And he's disguised as, say, an engineer on your team. Well, if you have the minimized view models, it'll kind of bring it down closer to the middle. This is the gameplay that you've been watching has the minimized view models on. So if I have these on, maybe that in that same situation, I will now see that spy, see that engineer. And me being an experienced player, I'll know he's a spy because he's acting a little bit weird. But for you, maybe you'll see him as an engineer, and you're like, well, hey, we don't have an engineer on our team, or, you know, something along those lines, or maybe he has your name, and so you can see him and immediately go for him and to try to kill him. So besides that, as far as I know, there isn't much to deal with here, except for what I said earlier, turning on the developer console from right here. So now there's, right under your escape key, there should be the tilde key. And pressing this brings up your developer console. And from here, you're going to want to put in a few commands. I have them in the description. You don't have to, you're going to have to put them in one by one, unfortunately. And so, for example, if you did not increase your FOV to 90 by sliding it, you can actually do it through a command. If I can do this here, and it's FOV underscore desired 90, and bam. So if it takes, it won't have anything under it. So the next is going to lower your interp, bam, to the minimum, and then the ratio to 1. These are your network settings, and so I can't explain these the best. I just know this from the community, but these are going to be the settings that you want. I will have them in the description, but I will also, more importantly, have in the description a link to the video that explains why these are important to have. So if you just put those in there, you'll be good to go, and you're on par with everyone else in terms of settings. So you shouldn't have to worry about any network issues that would be caused by the game or anything along those lines. So that's it. I'll let you get back to the video. TF2 also hates alt-tabbing, so when you exit TF2, right-click on the game, go to Properties, then Launch Options, and paste in what I wrote. All it does is skip the Valve head guy and runs the game in bordered windowed mode. That way, it doesn't care about alt-tabbing. Custom HUDs, configs, and mods. Now, I wanted to keep this section for last as it doesn't necessarily pertain to the game itself. If you don't like the look of your HUD, or how the menus are, or if you can't run the game well, listen up. There are a ton of options for all camps here. There's a pretty extensive modding scene around TF2, and it caters to most people. But Valve has allowed certain mods from working on their servers. For example, custom animations and model replacements can't be used. I do suspect that this will be an option again someday, but for now, you probably don't want to deal with those. You can still download custom configs and HUD replacements still, so look for those. For starters, the custom configs usually don't require any modding, just some console commands. You can get your game to run on a toaster with these if you need an FPS boost. You can find these all around, but you can check out cfg.tf to create one yourself. Then for all you HUD people out there, head over to huds.tf and browse to your heart's content. There are certain HUDs that are better for traders, but most are geared towards gameplay. Like this one here is Bud HUD. It's the most popular at the moment, and you might recognize it from Uncle Dane. However, different HUDs apply to different people, so have fun experimenting. Alright, that's it. This script is 15 pages, and I'm glad to be done with this one. The next one should be on the heavy, assuming the heavy update doesn't come out and ruin my plans, or radically change the heavy and invalidate the video. If not heavy, then maybe the pyro will come first. See you then.
I'm just dying. You're just spamming up this hallway, but for some reason, this is fine. Practice my dim won't ban.
Mommy! Oh, I should switch to the rescue ranger to help you.
I'm dead.
Oh no!